Alright, so the light's a little jacked up out here, so this probably isn't going to be great, but I tried to get some video of this, of me sandblasting this, and this does fit in my sandblaster, but it's really awkward. And the camera's either so close, or I'm going to crash this down on it or something like that. It's really not worth... I don't want to ruin that little camera. I really like it. I have a couple of them, but I think I'm down to one, and I had 4. So anyway, I didn't want to take a chance busting it. And the sandblaster, you know, some days it works really, really great. Some days it's not so good. I got all the water out of the... I drain the air compressor every week or two. But it was working okay today, but some of the rust on here is really tough. And the sandblaster, the media blaster, will take it out if I sit there and dither, but that's not always the most effective tool to remove rust. So, and when you really want to get serious about it, you're going to take a big Metabo, I think this is a 9-inch grinder with a knotted wire wheel on it. This puppy you just fire up and let her eat. It'll really take some rust off. So if you want to do this stuff outside, you want to have the wind at your back, you don't want to be breathing this stuff. So anyway, I'm going to set up a fan, and then I'm going to try to get some video of this. Now this is not the kind of thing that I would call pleasurable. This is dangerous, it's loud, it's obnoxious sounding, it is not fun. I'm going to park this big one, because I've done sort of the big spots on here, and then I'm going to go down to my little 4.5. That's much more manageable. These wheels are these are pretty expensive, but they work really good. Alright, so I've got one side that's relatively untouched so far, and then the inside of the lid, and it's you can see that the rust converter is definitely no panacea, but it's definitely getting into where I can't get in with the wire brush. I mean, even with the specialty brushes and things like that, it's really hard to get in there. But there's still, like I said, this metal's pretty thick, so even though this is rusted up, I think it's not going to be a huge problem. But anyway, I'm gonna continue to soak this with the rust converter. I think I've got some navel jelly I'll put in on here, but on the rest, while I'm waiting, now it's time to barbecue. So I'm gonna put some citrus strip on this, and try some other methods of removing the paint and stuff on here. Now I haven't done anything. No time lapse. One of the subscribers or one of the viewers had commented on how citrus strip is horrible and I didn't know what the hell I was doing and all this other stuff, and I didn't argue with him. I don't know what I'm doing, and his contention that it was horrible is, you know, somewhat subjective. If you were going to use some really harsh stuff, I'm sure it would work better, but this smells good. It's relatively non-toxic. It's really not dangerous stuff. And they say, oh, well, you know, it's really designed for this or that. Holy crap. That's working good. Anyway, let it just sit back and keep working. And this is wonderful. I might get another camera so I get some time lapse on it. This camera is a high definition one, and shoots about 50 megabits a second, so it takes up a lot of memory to shoot this. So I'll get a camera with some time lapse and come back. Alright, so the citrus strip has worked really well. I couldn't be happier with the way that's worked out. I noticed that the paint came off relatively easily with the sandblaster, but anyway, whatever type of paint was on here, you know, it just blew right off this thing. It's I've gone over it with just the paint scraper and whatnot, and once I wipe this out, that should be perfectly clean metal, so that'll be pretty nice. They apparently spilled something that was a little bit more adhesive in the bottom. I don't know what kind of paint that was, but there seemed to have been, I don't know, some white paint that sort of sloshed around the bottom quarter of this. But anyway, that saved me a lot of elbow grease doing that. So I'm real happy with that. I've got some rust issues down here on the bottom, but nothing's really poked through. I've got the rust converter in there, and it seems to just be disintegrating the rust more than anything. Which is what I hadn't seen it do that before. So anyway, if I can get that cleaned out a little bit more, I think that I'll be well on the way to having this cleaned up enough to start thinking about painting it. So anyway, I've still got quite a bit of work, but one of my viewers had a good suggestion. He said, go ahead and you know, clean these boxes up and maybe solicit some input from my viewers out there. So take advantage of the hive mind, so to speak. And if anybody has any tips on anything, I think what I'm going to do is just continue to clean this up and get all the rust out of it. And then the paint that I have is that KEM marine grade primer. I was thinking about doing that. It's a little thick though, so I'm for sure doing it on the inside. But on the outside, maybe the paint on, brush on Rust-Oleum for rough metal is what I have. But anyway, I'm open to suggestions if anybody's got any ideas on how to go about painting this, because the metal by and large is relatively clean, and I'll be able to get out all the different little rust marks here and there, but watching Ask This Old House one day, and they had a painter, and he says, you know, what's the key to painting? Is there any sort of special tip? And the guy says, get the paint out of the can and onto the wall. And it was one of the most profound statements I'd ever heard, because, you know, more often than not, people try to glorify their job and talk about how difficult it is, or they focused on a very small part I'm not trying to discount it, but it might be difficult, but it might be a very small part of the job. But it was the first time that I'd really heard anybody just break it down and get right to the nuts and bolts of things. And I thought that was a great description. So I'm just trying to get the paint out of the can and into the box.